Hey yo, how's it going everyone? Entropy here, today with another video. Today we're going to be spending some time on a new deck that we have been spending a lot of time on. The Spike Brothers event. We've had, I think, 2 pack openings and a live stream just to finish off this deck. Spent a lot of stamina, spent a lot of gems, but I guess finally we've done it. I've had a lot of fun with this deck, playing with different kind of variations. I think there's a lot of things that you can try out, but this is what has been working the best for me. So I guess without further ado, let's begin. So this deck, we're going to be playing Mecha Trainer. It's the standard starter. It's pretty good. You know, Forerunner, kind of last one, retire it, add a grade 1 or less from your deck to your hand. And primarily you're going to be searching for the PG. But of course you have other options as well. And something that's interesting is, you know, my list, I play 4 of the new PGs. But the good thing about clans like Kagero and Spike Brothers, primarily these 2, is that I think you have the option, without hindering your consistency that much, you have the option of searching for, specifically searching for the type of PG you want, whether that's the old PG or the new PG, depending on the matchups. And this could be the case, you know, if you check out some other content creators or whatever, they do consider this. But personally, I think, you know, the new PG is just better suited for this deck. And I've tested trying to mix and match, you know, a variation of 2-2 or 3-1, and turns out, you know, maybe the new version is just more consistent after all. But if you want to play around with that, you can definitely do that. But if you are playing the Break Ride variant, then for my personal experience, I think the new one it just works better. Next up, we have 4 Reckless Express. Reckless Express, you know, you might think of it as being less significant in this deck as it used to be, because, you know, the Break Ride, you know, makes everything go back to your deck and empty out your rearguard circles. But in some cases, when you don't hit the Break Ride, the Reckless Express is still very important in making your Dudley play still plausible. In addition, just having a 12k attacker when you need it is definitely very useful. So there's that. Next up, we play 2 of the Dudley Daisies. You know, gotta flex that SP that we got. Dudley Daisy skill is when placed from during the battle phase, kind of must want to get +5 until end of turn. Some people like the other Dudley Phantom, the 6k plus 4k booster. So 10k booster in whole. And I really like that in the original set 2 Dudley deck. But I feel like with this variation, you know, the extra 1k body does help, as well as when you're superior calling units, you go through your deck really fast, and if you have to, you know, call out a non-trigger unit, Dudley Daisy is an option to become a 12k attacker, while the Dudley Phantom can only be a 10k booster at most. So Dudley Daisy 7+5 plus the 10k from the Break Ride skill, 22k attacker, can definitely hit numbers. And it's not a bad option. And generally, if you're going to search for a booster anyways, a lot of your units are 9k, so hitting that 16k number is important. And the 6k, you know, you don't really want to pop it back to deck since your deck doesn't really generate that much card advantage. That's just from my personal experience. Wild Hitter, we're playing this card at 3. It is an interesting card that didn't really see a lot of play beforehand, but this time around, it's generally surprisingly more useful. I wasn't a believer in this card, but after playing with it, it actually pops up and helps you, you know, plus more consistently and get those kill turns more effectively. Its skill is, at the end of the battle, that the drive check of the Vanguard, this unit boosted reveals a grade 3. So this is behind the Vanguard. You check a grade 3, kind of +1, put this into the soul, call anything from your deck to a rearguard, empty rearguard circle. So, you know, when you're using your bad end dragger turn, or even, and you're missing a booster or something, or even when you're in an early game turn when you have to fill up your board, you know, superior calling something like a Devil Summoner is pretty good. So definitely can help, and you know, it is an option. And as well, if you're gonna put it behind the Vanguard, you're gonna be hitting, because they get 3k boost, right? So it's gonna be hitting like 21k numbers, which is just right for most of the decks that you're gonna be facing against in the meta. And, you know, not gonna lie, it's probably just gonna be Eradicators. In terms of the grade 2 lineup, we're going to play 4 high-speed Bracky, similar to Reckless Express. It's just a solid card, 14k beater. You're not going to use, again, you're not going to see the Soul Blast skill that much, which is a good thing because you don't have to manage Soul as much anymore. But it is still important because on your Break Ride turn, it is going to hit 19 by itself, but if you Soul Blast when it hits 24, it's going to go back to the deck anyway, so you don't really care about that. You're going to have all the soul you want because, you know, the Break Ride helps you facilitate the other returning skills, so you don't really need to Soul Blast that much. So hitting that 24k number by itself when your opponent's at 5, just to hit over, guarantee hitting over that defensive without spending Counterblast on like Dudley Douglas can definitely be very useful. Next, we're playing 4 Devil Summoners. Devil Summoners just lets you, when placed, top call if it's a grade 2 or less. So check top card if it's grade 2 or less, call it out. So it's good because this deck doesn't have a lot of ways to generate advantage. You know, you can argue, you know, Wild Hitter or stuff like Dudley Mason, but you're still, you know, the cost is considerably huge, right? You're still trading 1 unit for another, and you're still trading 1 card in hand for another. Devil Summoner is just on place, superior call 1 if it's grade 2 or less. And you might say like, oh yeah, it's just a worse card. You know, some people think of it that way, but you know, positively speaking, you're not calling out a trigger, right? So there's that. In addition, sometimes, especially in your Break Ride turn, if you don't think you can kill them, you know, setting up 2 Devil Summoners, if your back row is empty, you know, calling stuff out into the back row so you can use them as you know, units for use later on can definitely be an option as well. Next up, we play 4 Dudley Mason. Dudley Mason is a surprising card as well. Like I saw the card, I was like, Counterblast 2, on hit Vanguard, but surprisingly, it comes into play so much more often than expected. This is the card that helps you push your opponent's early game. On hit, Counterblast 2, put a card from your hand to your soul, call out anything from your deck again. So, you know, superior calling Devil Summoner is never bad. Calling out like Juggernaut Maximum for 160k attack to hit over numbers is definitely good as well. So yeah, and then one last Dudley Douglas, because I originally tried, you know, maybe more Dudley Daisies or stuff or so, but the Dudley, you know, you don't really want to search it. You rather search a grade 2, and the Dudley Douglas is just there for that, right? You don't really want to superior call it because you have all the soul you want in this deck, generally speaking. You don't use a lot of it. But Counterblast is a bit tight because you have Counterblast 2 with Dudley Mason, you have Counterblast 2 with Dudley Emperor, so it's just generally there as a 9k beater and a search target for Jelly Beans. Next up, we're going to play 4 Jelly Beans as the heal, of course, you know, no questions asked. 4 Break Ride, its skill is when rolled upon +10, gain the following 2 abilities, all your front row gets +10, at the end of the battle your rear guards go to the bottom, and then when this card is boosted it gets +3, so. And then Dudley Emperor's skill is Limber Break 4, when attacks Vanguard, Counterblast 2, put a card from your hand to your soul, call 2 cards to the empty rearguard circle, and then when this card boosted, it gets +3. So, you know, when you Break Ride on Dudley Emperor onto Bat and Dragger, you basically empty out your front row, Dudley Emperor, call out front row, attack. So you're gonna get, you know, the usual 5 attack combination, but this time it hits big numbers in exchange for losing the units after you attack. And lastly, I am playing 1 Juggernaut Maximum. This card, a lot of people initially tried Skydiver and moved away from it, and after testing it, I kind of agree, and I found Juggernaut Maximum just more useful. It's a target that you can superior call with Dudley Mason and Wild Hitter earlier on to hit those 16k numbers, or you know, 23 if you have a booster, can definitely help. And Skydiver does help you extend your combos, like I agree with that, but again, card advantage. This deck doesn't really generate a lot of card advantage. Like sure, you want the pressure, but if you're gonna spend out all your cards earlier on, your opponent can just control you. And you know, on your Break Ride turn, if that's not the kill turn, then you mostly just lose. You're out of steam. So Skydiver is a pretty good card. You can still test that out, but I feel like the Juggernaut Maximum, being able to help you hit numbers and just pop back to the deck as a draw trigger, definitely can be more useful than not. Some other card choices that I think could be considered. I see a lot of people use Gary Gannon, and I see why, because you really do want your combination from the Break Ride into the Dudley Emperor, right? Because, you know, this deck can still function with Dudley Emperor by itself, like the previous version, but it's just not as good. It's just not as consistent. And the Gary Gannon can help you filter earlier on, but the 6k body doesn't help. And the Wild Hitter just extends your combos much more effectively. We talked about Dudley Phantom. I did test out Zachary as the one-off, you know, on hit, Soul Blast 1, put it to a drawing card, put it to the bottom of the deck, and that's where your opponent can't damage deny you as well. But turns out you don't really need to care about that. For spikes, the main goal is to go face, and then let your opponent break ride and do their thing, and then you go face and like win game. So that's just how it works. 10k is okay as well, but having that one extra search target for jelly beans can definitely come in handy. And then some people play this, Jumbo the Stun Gun, but Jumbo the Stun Gun, you know, it helps you refuel your costs, but you're on the break ride turn, you're gonna kill. So it doesn't really, I don't really use it in terms of my playstyle, I'll say the least. And that's basically it. I mean, Lucifer and Catapult, they're budget cards, right? They're decent, but they don't help you with the winning image. So that's just how I see it. All right, so I guess let's just go straight into a game and talk about the game plan a little bit. This deck is all about controlling the pace of the game, right? It's like, so your ideal winning image is you play early aggro, put your opponent to 4 or 5, you let your opponent do their break ride turn, push you to 4 or 5, and then you finish them off. You shouldn't control your opponent to 3 and wait for them to give you break ride, because if you do that and your opponent has 1 PG, it basically means it doesn't work. The play doesn't work, and then you're gonna die because you're already at 4 or 5. Yeah, I mean, overall this deck is pretty straightforward. I really like this deck. I've been playing this deck a lot more than Eradicators and stuff. Like, Eradicators is good. It's just kind of boring, not gonna lie. And we're gonna keep the Wild Hitter as a ride target. It's okay. We're gonna definitely keep the Banner Dragger. Everything else I'm gonna throw away. I kind of want the grade 2 so we don't get grade stuck. That's pretty nice. Another thing is, when do you use your Mecha Trainer? For my last build, I kind of recommended you to use it earlier. In this build, I actually kind of don't really want to use it that much. And the reason why is because, well, you're not, you know, you actually kind of want to trade in terms of face damage as much as possible so that your opponent doesn't have the time to collect those PGs. And the booster actually is really important. Like, I feel like that could have been like something that I might have been not playing the spikes set 2 most optimally. And you know, using Mecha Trainer as kind of a target, especially when you already have PGs in your hand, I think is something that you should consider. The reason why I did put the Mecha Trainer behind the Vanguard, even though I usually don't, I usually put it in the corners, is because I already rode the Wild Hitter. Like, there's only 3 copies in my deck. If I already saw one, then the chances of seeing another one is pretty low. Ideally, the Wild Hitter is behind the Vanguard, so whenever you hit a trigger, you can consider using it as an option, but don't be too trigger happy. Like, just because you can doesn't mean you should, and always think about your options. Here, we're just gonna ride the Mason. We can't use the skill, but you know, it's still, the Bracky can still help you out hitting numbers later on, and it is your superior call target. So on your break ride turn, the 2 units that you put in the front row to attack first, they go back to the deck, and so whether that's triggers or important units, you know, you can play around with that. We're gonna call out the Reckless Express and go face. Here we can attack with the rearguard first because our opponent did deal 1 damage to us, which means on our Vanguard attack, if we check a heal, you know, even though it's a second attack, we will still successfully activate it. Exactly, like here. Wow, good player. All right, so our opponent's playing an interesting Gold Paladin build that doesn't really have a clear goal. They're playing some Spring Breeze Messenger with Liberator requirements cards, playing the 8K and the Blaster Blade Spirit. Kind of confused what they're trying to do. Probably a Pelennor-centric deck, but something to note, please. You know, some people might try, I've seen some people try, like, you know, break ride Pelennor during battle phase and, like, you know, do break ride stuff. But, you know, Pelennor doesn't break ride. Pelennor places itself on the Vanguard circle, so you can't actually activate the break ride skill, so that's just something to note. And I hope our opponent, you know, if they are trying that, then it's a good time to showcase that it doesn't work, I guess. But yeah, Pelennor is still a really fun deck. Not gonna lie, but yeah, it's just that interaction doesn't work. Like, I think it's a pretty small thing that people don't really talk about, and some people think it's like super cool that it could happen, but the reason why people don't talk about it is because it doesn't work. It doesn't work that way. So opponent's Spring Beam Messenger. So here we're doing pretty good actually. I mean, we have 2 Baton Draggers. Ideally we'd have 1 Dudley Emperor and 1 Baton Dragger, but our opponent's Superior called the Liberator Maron, which is interesting because, I mean, there's 1 Liberator on the board, but I don't know. So far, not a lot of Liberator units yet. Alright, so let's just ride the Baton Dragger. There's no animation. I don't think, did it ever show up in the anime? I'm not too sure actually. Here, again, one of the problems of this deck is that you don't generate card advantage, so sometimes you have to play it a bit slow. But that last final turn is super strong, so there's that. Yeah, and yeah, this deck is, it does try to get that 1 pop-off turn, but the weakness is the strength, you know, compared to other pop-off decks like Blau, Ethics Blau, is that it's not as piece reliant. But the bad thing is that, you know, with Nova Grapplers, you have a lot of cards that can generate card advantage or card draw, which makes it more consistent in a sense, while Spike Brothers is more flexible. But if you don't hit those draw triggers, it's kind of just a sitting duck, just waiting for stuff to happen. So this isn't the best situation that we are being put at. Opponent's attacking with a rearguard first. So this is a Liberator deck with some non-Liberators splashed inside, I guess. So here we see a draw trigger, which is nice. And we see the Dudley Emperor. But our opponent's 18 plus 3, so 21, which is not good for us. Again, we don't want to break right here at all. Our opponent's only at 2 damage. It's kind of hard to imagine being able to finish them off on this turn. But our opponent's hitting crits out of nowhere. It's kind of worrying, actually, because we're going to be at 5. What are we going to do? We're going to hit a heal. Easy game. Just hit triggers. Alright. What are we going to do? We might have to search for the PG to survive. Should we break ride? How many PGs have our opponent shown? 0. 1, 2, 3. I think it's not worth it yet. Again, ideally your opponent's at 4 or 5, right? Ideally. Let's just search for the PG just in case. We don't know if our opponent's going to hit one of those random stray triggers and then finish us off. But we don't mind stray triggers. Alright, let's just swing. And yes, if our opponent does break ride, it means that they will draw a Blaster Blade Liberator, which means that they can counterblast and retire the Bracky. But our opponent should only have 3 attacks unless they play that like awkward crit draw, stand and heal build. And we have 2 PGs to protect us anyways, and this would let us have a clear path to winning next turn. Okay. Chrome Jailer. Those numbers are big, but don't really matter. Don't have a Blaster Blade Liberator at all. Okay. Okay, going for lethal. But they should know that we just added a PG to our hand. Don't do that, kids. Just please, you know, pay attention to your opponent's play. Like, literally, if you don't remember, there's a log for a reason. Scroll, 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 and then scroll, and then scroll, and then scroll. And it's like, ooh, you used a skill, you added a PG. Oh yeah, PG's block lethal damage. Maybe we shouldn't be using that retire skill. Feeling kind of bad. It's probably someone trying to get to legend in the first place, but boing, and then we win. Yeah, ideally, again, the strategy is we push them to 4, they do their break ride stuff, they push us to 4 or 5, then we do our break ride stuff, and then we win the game. But I guess even in a losing position, we can still recover, and Dudley Emperor is still Emperor. Yeah, another tech is that, again, since the cards in the front row is everything's going to go back to the bottom of the deck anyways, calling out the trigger isn't that bad. Here I am going to call the Devil Summoner though, since it could be potentially a +1, which it is. Free +1 is always nice. I'm going to attack with the rear guard first, because the next one could be, if they hit a trigger, the 21 can still hit, right? And so that means I can still save the booster for whatever units I call out next. 1 PG. And then it depends on what they drew into, but again, we have 5 attacks. Let's call up 2 units. And calling out the Double Summoner, another good thing is that it deck thins for non-triggers, right? So even if you're not, you know, even if you check a Double Summoner, just step on top of it. It doesn't hurt. Especially in the late game when you're all in anyways and you're just gonna win anyways. Deck thin. So we thinned our deck from 2 triggers, so the chance of hitting a trigger just went up, right? And hitting those heals. Switch it to the left side. And that is it. Boing. Heal trigger? Come on. If the heal trigger our right column attacks, if the heal trigger again our left column Soul Blast attacks. And the very good thing is that it hits numbers. Like it hits number in the proper way, right? Not the Liberator, well, we have big numbers, but we can't boing face. Like it's. So yeah, I guess that's basically it. It's pretty straightforward. Go face, wait, go face again, and win game. So that is it for this video. It's pretty long. If you want to know more about it, come check out on our live stream. We did the most recent live stream was just, you know, playing with the new stuff and trying to see what is going on, racking up and having some fun with some viewers. So do check that out. If you like the video, go like the video. If you dislike it, go dislike it. And then if you haven't already, please subscribe and stay safe. And I'll see you all next time. Bye.